Well, welcome back to the Gardening with Joy and Holly radio show. Thank you for allowing us to be part of your day. How can we have a better garden this year? Well, there's a lot of things in which we can do as gardeners to increase the success level in which we can have in our garden. We're going to go over several of those in which can make me increase your production rate in your backyard garden or your community garden, wherever your garden is located.
Yeah, so the first one is to, and I like this one, is to plan several ways if possible. And I think this is great because it gives you a chance. If you have a fail point, you have a saving point usually too. So this would mean, growing, whether it be something like raised beds versus containers versus in the ground, but then also growing annuals and perennials if possible. Sometimes you can't grow perennials depending on where you're growing, but these give you some options and,
well, it's just like growing up on the farm.
Some control.
On our farm, we had multiple, I guess, stop points, or I don't know what the term is, but we had cattle, we had hogs, we had wheat, grain, we had soybeans, and we had corn. So there was 5 different levels of income that could come in.
Like a fail stop.
A fail stop, yeah. So if one, and then in amongst those varieties, we didn't plant all the same variety of soybeans or all the same varieties of corn. We had 5 or 6 different varieties of each one of those that was spread amongst the farm. So if one had a bug infestation or did poor in drought, even though it was tested by the seed companies, one field may have only yielded 40 bushel the acre, but the other one did 90 or 110. We didn't have everything all one thing, and if it failed, we were done.
Right. So that's the same thing here. You obviously don't have to include livestock or cattle, but
some people are getting into chickens.
Some people are getting into chickens, yep. Yes.
For a variety of reasons.
Yeah.
We won't get into that. Good soil, watering, and it's okay to fertilize that good soil organically or in a safe manner.
Right. So, so good soil just means that you want to make sure that it's nutrient rich, that if you are starting fresh, that you know where your soil is coming from, and also you want to make sure that you're not just using some cheap old whatever you found on discount or something.
Or if you got in-ground. You want to get your soil test from growsmart.com or soilsavvy.com to give you an analyzation of what you need to do, what you don't need to do, and how to fix that. And on your point, if you're going to go purchase compost to fill or supplement or fill your raised beds or mix in with your native soil, there's some things you need to be aware of.
Yeah, you need to be aware of where the soil comes from because you could end up with possibly bad soil. And that's not good.
Those companies typically don't last too long.
They typically don't last too long. And if you're like, well, I don't know what to do, you could go to your independent garden center or soil supplier, whoever they are, local, independent, and find out where does this soil come from? How long has this company been around?
The origins. How is it made? What is the base product? Is it scraps? Yeah. Is it lawn debris? Is it just whatever anybody wants to dump in the pile and we break it up?
Is it turkey droppings? What?
Right.
What is it? Is it maple tree bark? Who knows?
And independent garden centers, reputable, trustworthy soil manufacturers, they will have no problem telling you what the origins. Whenever you ask that question, like, and they start, walk away because they are hiding something. Be careful if you go with that, because a company that has no worries about, they will say, yeah, here's the origins, here's the products that was brought in, blah, blah. They will tell you without any concern whatsoever.
Right. So you want to think of a good soil. You want to water properly. So watering properly just means watering
irrigation system. Dripworks.com.
And it also means you're not just going to think about watering, you're going to do the watering.
No splash and go.
No splash and go. You want to get yourself on a watering schedule. And if your watering schedule is Monday, Wednesday, Saturday, just because it rained on Wednesday doesn't necessarily mean, say it rained Wednesday morning, but you weren't home and you're like, I'm pretty sure it rained here, but by the time you get home, it was dried up. You're not really sure. Just water, check your soil, go an inch or so down and see how dry the soil is.
And just because you may water in whatever method, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, that may work in April or early May, but when it comes July and August, you may have to go every day if you're not on an automatic watering system for your garden, because plants grow a lot better when the soil is damp and has moisture than when it's stressed and trying to survive.
And they also ward off a lot of problems.
It's a healthier plant.
It's a healthier plant. So then fertilizers, you just want to do your research and know what you're putting into your soil around your plants.
Same thing, the origin of it.
The origin of it. And then also, once you figure that out, you want to follow the directions. Just because a half a cup per 3 square feet is good doesn't mean that a whole cup is better.
That's just an example. Don't follow that.
Follow the instructions. Use your smarts, and then keep in mind that even if it's organic or natural or whatever you want to call it, that more is better. That's not true. And a lot of times you're wasting your money. You could be harming your soil. There is still fertilizer damage and things like that, even with organics.
Choose the plants that's suited for your particular climate and your soil. Research the plants that thrive in your specific growing location. And in that realm, there are climates as well, meaning something may grow great in your neighbor's backyard, but you can't grow it at all, or the other way around. So know the health of your soil, and then figure out, like we talked about in the first segment, onions. Some people have challenges growing onions because they get the wrong day length for their particular area, and it doesn't grow well, and they think they're a horrible gardener. That's not that. Know what grows in your area. Know if you're going to get fruit trees. Know what zone you're in, and get the zone 1 colder than what you're in. If you're in a zone 5, get a tree or a plant that is suitable for zone 4, so it always has that little bit of cushion, and the longevity of that will be more accurate, because there's going to be years where you're going to have that really dip in that cold, and that plant that's suited for 5, now that cold temperature for a week is really like a 4, or a 3, and it's not going to last. So keep that in mind when you look at your zones for your overwintering or your perennials.
Yeah. So then you also want to consider growing native plants. Native plants, they are adapted to your local climate. They also work well within the local ecosystem.
When you say that, we're not really speaking like cucumbers or peppers. We're talking more of flowers and grasses and shrubbery type of thing, aren't we?
Absolutely, and even can come down to some annuals. Like I know we just picked up. We were at this other expo, and they had this Wisconsin natural.
Butterfly mix.
Pollinator. Yeah. So you can do all sorts of things, and you're like, I only grow vegetables. How does this apply to me? You should be growing some flowers because it helps the pollinators. And if this pollinator mix, basically you just like toss it into some soil and it grows. So native plants do grow usually very easily.
Mulch. Use mulch in combination with that watering. Mulch is going to do a couple of things. Natural mulch, chemical-free, seed-free grass clippings, shredded paper, straw, chemical-free straw, dry leaves, if you have leaves left over, that type of thing. It's creating a barrier. It's creating a barrier preventing moisture from wicking out of the soil and into the air and drying out the soil quicker. It slows it down. It's not 100%, we got mulch on, we don't have to water ever again. You want a couple of inches of mulch. And it also prevents soil from splashing up in watering or rain onto particular plants or all plants, especially like tomatoes, that soil harbors early blight, which discolors your plants and starts killing the plant from the ground up. So that also benefits that soil protection of the plant when you use mulch. There's a variety of different mulches you can get. I would avoid synthetic mulches or mulches such like cocoa coir, the chocolate cocoa coir. Regular cocoa coir is fine. can be expensive if you want to go that route. Natural stuff. When you mow your grass, if you're not using a weed and feed on your lawn and it doesn't have seeds on your grasses because you've waited too long, bag that up, let it dump it out somewhere, kind of one layer on the driveway, let it dry for about an hour and a half, 2 hours, put it in the garden, and you're good to go. And that'll break down. You continue to do that. You're feeding your soil as well, but make sure it doesn't have weed seeds or chemicals on that grass, as well as plant where the plants should be grown.
So that means, like, for example, if you have something that's a full sun plant, like a tomato or a pepper or something that you're growing for the fruit of the plant, like the actual fruit, you want to plant that in full sun. If it's something where it's a shade plant and does well in the shade, 6 to 8 hours of sunlight, you want to make sure,
like herbs,
or like lettuce, something leafy, then you want to make sure you are keeping that in the shade. You can easily, if you don't, maybe you're like, I don't have any shade in my yard, then you might not, but then you might need to invest in some shade cloth, because a lot of times the too much sun can burn those shade plants, and obviously not enough sun is not good for the fruit plants.
Soon it will be warming up, Holly, and you will want to make sure your lawn is safe from those beetles and grubs.
Yeah, spring is just around the corner, and it's time to start thinking about controlling beetles and grubs in your garden. There's all sorts of, everybody's always talking about Japanese beetles, and they're going to be a problem.
Grub Gone. It can be applied directly to the turf, garden, around ornamentals, and can lessen the impact that beetles have on your yard this summer. Easy to apply with a commercial spreader or irrigate it right into the soil. It is specifically designed to target grubs and beetle invaders without harming beneficial insects like bees, ladybugs, and butterflies.
And to be honest, it's the only BT or non-chemical that works. Find out more at phyllombioproducts.com. That's PHYLLOM bioproducts.com.
And or grubgone.com.